Welcome to another episode of Bloom, the podcast put on by Lotus Flower Media. I am Elizabeth Denham, owner of Lotus Flower Media, and I'm here with the creative director, Luke Reosti.
Hello, welcome to Bloom. I'm so happy to be here.
Good. Okay, so there's a lot going on in the world of SEO and search engine optimization, in terms of how Google search is impacting it, in terms of how social media is impacting it. So we thought we would give a little tutorial and talk a little bit about what all of this means for where we are and where we're going. So, Luke, I think we were just going to start off with some definitions and help people understand what SEO actually means. So, can you talk a little bit about, search engine optimization, but more clearly in plain language, what is that?
Yeah, so basically like the definition puts it pretty straightforward. But in layman's terms, search engine optimization is just making sure that your business or your brand is going to be showing up on people's Google searches at the top of the feed. You want to be one of the first options that people are seeing because when you're dealing with customers, they're not going to be very patient unless they're not satisfied with anything or you have a very specific service. So a lot of the times they're just going to maybe check out the first top three search results and then from that point on, everything below is not getting as much traffic. And so SEO and your job with SEO is to try and make sure that everything that's appearing online regarding your brand is going to be showing up on a variety of keyword searches, not just, the name of your business, period. You want to be able to hit a bunch of different topics and markets. And so to do that, you just need to make sure that all of the content that you have is reaching kind of a broad language. So there's also a balance between finding that broad language and then also making it specific enough to be hitting people that is your target audience.
Right. And so what we're talking about too is organic SEO because there are paid ads that you'll see, and now we're going to get into this too, but we have AI search at the top, an AI generated answer when you do a search. Then you have the sponsored posts that people are paying for using Google Ads, and then the ones that are below that are the organic results that are impacted by how you keyword your content, how you're producing content, at what frequency, that your content is relevant to your business and your topics, and that you're strategic in how you do those things. So, do you want to talk to us a little bit about the AI search and how that's impacting click-through rates and SEO and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I definitely do. But first, I kind of wanted to hit on a point that you mentioned. When you're actually going through the search results, you are seeing the sponsored posts, and then you're seeing the rest of the organic posts. And I'm glad that you mentioned that because I feel like everyone's first instinct is to just say, I'm going to take the easy way out. I'm just going to pay for my brand to show up at the top of the things. But what we're starting to notice is that there's a lot of differences between customer trust on those types of interactions. A lot of the times people will see those sponsored links and they will trust them less because they're like, this is not something that is being recommended to me because it is the best option. This is something that is being recommended to me because somebody's paying for it. And while that's, there's definitely benefits in showing up and being seen, period. I think that what you're also trying to do with the customer is gain that trust. And so when you're doing SEO, making sure that you are showing up on the organically suggested posts is going to be more important to a degree than whether or not you're going to spend a lot of money to put your brand at the top of a page and for how long. And so now we're seeing things like AI searches, which is showing up on every single search engine. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
and before we get into that, I wanted to mention too, the one thing about a sponsored post versus an organic post is when you do a paid ad, it's like turning on a faucet. You're going to have the paid ad, you're going to come up higher, you're going to have the sponsored post, but when you turn it off, it goes away. You're kind of stuck doing a paid ad forever and ever if you're not working on your organic. So a lot of times there's a transitional period where it's a really good idea to do paid for a period, and then if your organic is starting to build you up, and the bots have trolled your site and all that, you're going to start to appear higher. But keep that in mind that if you don't have an organic strategy, it's it's going to be harder and harder to show up in organic searches if you're not doing the paid ad.
hmm To me, it almost seems like you're almost trying to form some sort of relationship with Google to be
Mhm.
trusted by their algorithms, And so when you're paying for that thing, Google is saying, okay, this is the transaction. I'm going to put you here for however long you're paying me. But if Google in its algorithm recognizes your services as something that the people who are searching Google is going to be more interested in, then you're going to have a better chance of showing up. And so, it's your job to strategize those types of data points that you're putting in on your website, on your blog, and we can get into all of that in the future. But you're exactly right. Once you stop paying for that ad, the faucet turns off, and then you're not going to see the same results that you were seeing before. So it's about forming that relationship with Google.
Yeah. So now let's get into the AI and talk about how that's changing because that is going to, if it hasn't already, dramatically impact click-through rates from Google searches. Because why?
Yes. So, as we all know, AI is definitely taking over the internet and taking over the world, especially in Google. And so, what we're seeing now is something called a zero-click phenomenon, in which people are going to Google, searching their question, and not clicking a single link that comes down because they're satisfied with the AI overview that is being provided by Google. And so, what that means in terms of your job, in terms of your SEO, is going to be basically trying to show up in those AI answers. And so, you are basically now going from click me to providing the most substantive information for AI to say, this is what I want to use, and this is the best answer for what your customers might be searching in there. And the good thing about AI is that it will give you the summary and the answers that you're looking for. And at the bottom of the search engine, Google specifically, it will say, this is the link that I got this from. So while it is a zero click, that's what it's called, it's going to still have access points to your services and to your website. And so showing up on those answers is the solution.
Yeah. And so the way you can think about that is that it changes a little bit the way we might present information on a website. So instead of being quite so formal and corporate and bullet pointed and here we do this and we do this and we do this, you write in a more conversational tone because AI is conversational. I mean, I say please and thank you to AI sometimes if I'm in a chat GPT, please answer this question for me. And people tend to do that. So if you're on your phone and you're using a voice search, or if you're typing into Google and you get the analytics, you're asking a question. So what you want to do is present your information in ways that answer questions that people are asking. So there are tools that you can use to find out what kinds of questions people are asking, but you can also intuitively know what would people be asking about the things that you do and the services that you provide. So some of the ways that you can sort of mitigate this change is by presenting condensed versions of answers to questions. So FAQs are a really good way to do it. That might be something you want to do more of. If you have multiple services, multiple service pages, you might want to do an FAQ at the bottom of those and say, answer, 3 or 4 common questions for your business. Another way to mitigate that is blogging. That's going to become more and more important because the more content you produce, the more you give answers to, the more likely you are to come up in those searches. So there's a lot of different ways that you can sort of start providing more and more information. We've always said that the more a site is updated, the more often you're posting, the more pages you're able to add, the more blogs or articles you're able to add, the more videos you're able to add. All of those things keeps your site current. It keeps it fresh. That's always been a positive impact on your Google search rank. So now providing that information is going to become even more important because of the way that the AI is generating these answers, right?
Yeah, exactly. And what you said about the FAQ, definitely having answers to questions is going to be one of the biggest selling points for your website to be showing up on those AI overviews. And so, what people are noticing is that when they're when they're putting content online that people are interested in, whether that be for the answers or for some sort of entertainment value, those types of things are going to be the things that are showing up more than whether or not you're saying, this is my service, please buy my service. here are my service options, here are my pay rates, all of those things that are important, but those are not the things that you want are advertising to your customers. You are advertising, I am a brand who knows what I'm talking about in my industry. And then from that point on, then you can say, okay, I've given you answers to questions that you may have in regard to this specific field. Now, if you want, you can come and use my services. And so, because we live in this kind of like short form dominating world, you're kind of having to take a little bit more of a passive approach when dealing with those customers. And one of those things that is changing as well is the fact that social media has become most of the places that, especially Gen Z people, have been searching for answers. It has become almost a search engine in itself. And so when you're making social media posts, you have to be kind of thinking of it from a place of, is this going to connect with someone who might not know my brand or care about my brand and still provide value for them? And so a lot of the times, you have things like blog posts, email marketing, social media posts, and what you can do to maximize that is to create content that might be more like an article, more like a how-to, things that people will just be generally interested in seeing. And then from that point on, then it will connect to your services.
Yeah. And so the zero click phenomenon is translating to social media as well. The way we used to do social media and are still, to be honest, doing it to a degree, is that everything was trying to drive to the website. You would have a link, you would have a caption, you would make an interesting graphic, and everything you were doing was trying to drive people to the website, either to your contact page, to your services page, to take an action and get them to the website. Now that's becoming less important because people aren't doing it. So building your brand is more important than ever now. So having a strong look, having a strong feel, having a strong tone, having a strong message, and not necessarily using social media to get people to click to your website, but more likely to contact you. So the recommendation is that you don't necessarily put a link in every single post, that you're giving, particularly Instagram. So Instagram just announced recently that they are allowing Google to have individual posts show up in a Google search. Now, historically, you could search a company and you might get their Facebook profile listed, but now we haven't had individual posts show up in search results. So the importance of every post that you do is becoming greater because of these posts could show up in a Google search. So Instagram is becoming much more powerful by virtue of that. But now, I don't know if you've noticed, but you can see where they'll post almost an entire article. They'll still at the bottom say to read the whole thing, go to the link in bio, but you're getting the bulk of the article in the Instagram caption itself, in the copy of the post. So that's a new and different way of looking at some of the social media tactics that we've been doing. YouTube is its own search engine. It's been that way for a while. So optimizing your YouTube is important, but now Instagram is kind of becoming its own little search engine as well.
Exactly. And I think that when Instagram started, people were afraid to be putting kind of posts that people had to invest maybe even more than just a minute in, because they were worried, oh, people are going to see all this text and swipe and all of those things. But what we're seeing with the zero click phenomenon is that it's not just translating to Google search, it's also translating to social media. So when you get their attention, they're more likely to stay there and read your whole posts, which is basically the same thing if you think about it as them going through your website and looking through it. What they're
Yeah.
not likely to do is to click to go somewhere else. Because if they're scrolling through Instagram, they're going to sit there and they're going to want to scroll through Instagram. So making those posts as substantive as possible is going to be the most important thing going forward.
Yeah, and then that's an interesting thing too because people don't want to click. It's so interesting how we're just lazy. We just want content, right? Which goes back to making sure that your brand is really clearly defined because what's going to happen is, let's just say you're a law firm and people are seeing your content in Instagram. What they're going to do is remember that brand. Oh, this is the one that shows up in my feed. They've been answering my questions. I'm going to go find that. So they may be more likely to search that way. So brand recognition, brand authority, the way you present that information. So in Instagram, having carousel posts, That's one way to keep them on your post a little bit longer. That's one way to get more in-depth information. It's sort of counterintuitive to all the things that we've learned in the past about how to use social media to get people to your business. Now you want to get them to your business using social media, and we care a little bit less about getting them to your website. What they're going to do is they're going to say, "Oh, I remember that. I'm going to go look their website up to get their contact information." They may not be going there to find as many answers. So it's kind of a juxtaposition of our historic way of doing things, and not to say you still have to be aware of the Google search because you are going to have those. But with the younger generation, which a lot of us are trying to attract to our businesses, it's important to make your social media a little more comprehensive and certainly well branded.
Exactly. And the unfortunate part too, and I understand for probably a lot of people who aren't as experienced or versed in social media, this is probably where the frustration happens. But it's not just about you're making the post, you're putting the content in there that's good. There's also a lot of more behind the scenes stuff now that you can do to put yourself ahead of the competitors in terms of SEO. So when you're making those posts on different social media platforms, making sure that you're adding alt text to every single image because that text is an accessibility thing and it also is describing what the photo is with words so that when you post it on social media, it will show up on Google based on the words that you put in for the alt text. There are other things like the Google Business Platform that making sure that you're doing behind the scenes in like congruent with making sure that your posts are topical and relevant to your business are also things that are going to be super important in making sure that you show up at the head of the line.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of people neglect their Google business profile. So you need to be updating that just like you're updating your social media. You can put, your images on there. You can put posts on there. You can make sure you're getting Google reviews. You can make sure that um, all of your business profiles across the different platforms, whether it's Yelp or Google Business or any of the other ones, making sure that they're consistent. Your address is consistent, your phone number is consistent, you've got your website link there, that your description is consistent, so that it is identified as the same business across all the platforms. So those are things that are going to become a little bit more important as well with the way of the new search engines and algorithms. And I think making sure that you have a comprehensive plan um, is really, really important.
Exactly. And just the fact that everything is changing so fast, going back and auditing your posts is also going to be super helpful because, as you said earlier, Instagram has now decided that they're going to start, or Google has decided with Instagram that they're going to start indexing every single Instagram post as a searchable item in Google. And so your social media platforms are going to be more visible than they've ever been on Google and in SEO. And so, making sure that all of these things are cohesive and professional and make your brand look like the number one choice that somebody is going to use is going to take a lot of work. This is something that you're going to have to think about. And so definitely, it's totally fine to find somebody who might know a little bit more about it to help you because these are things that even we are learning as the days go on, as time progresses, because the way technology works is just it's exponential.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot to keep up with, and people who are running a business generally don't have time to keep up with those things. So that's why we think it's important to come on every now and then and give some updates. And one of the things that we've been promoting from Lotus Flower Media is doing a package where you can do a long form video and then do a bunch of reels with it. That is becoming more relevant as well, just because those are things that get attention on Instagram and clearly on TikTok and other platforms. But if it's going to be searched and searchable and findable on Google, you want to make sure that you have a variety of content going out and that those videos are answering questions. So those are all things to consider. And if certainly if you need help with those things, you can reach out to us and see what kind of plan we can help you come up with. We can do an audit and kind of see where you are and do some recommendations for ways to improve your searchability going forward. And we also can do website audits. So if you're wanting to know how well your website is performing, what are some things you can do to improve it, get a little bit of a plan going forward that you want to do yourself, we can certainly help you with that. But also, if it's something that you want to get someone to help you do, we can put you in a plan for that as well. Is there anything we haven't touched on, Luke, that you had on your mind?
No, but I do want to point out that when we started those reel packages, we were starting those to address the difference between Instagram feed posts and then reel posts and who those audiences went to. It was going toward those were more the individual feed posts were more announcements that were in that moment for your followers, and then the reels were going sending them out like a beacon to go into people's algorithms to bring people to you. But with this change, these indexed feed posts are now going to be evergreen because they're going to show up with the rest of your search results on Google, regardless of when they're posted. So right now, more than ever, both reel posts and feed posts and making sure that they're optimized for SEO is more important than ever.
Yeah, that's a great point. So what you're what you're doing is mattering for longer, because the Google index can find it if it's related to a specific topic. So you want to be sure that what you're posting is something that's going to be relevant, it's going to be timely, it's going to be evergreen, um, and that you're doing that strategically as well. That's a really good point.
And that's why an audit is also important because your posts from 5 years ago might be showing up on Google starting now because of the changes. And that is something that your company has not dealt with before because this is something that everyone is dealing with for the first time.
Which is true. So if you have a service that you're no longer offering or something that has changed dramatically, you may want to go through and cull some of those posts so that they're not showing up in the Google search.
Hmm. Exactly. We're
Yeah.
just having to change the way that we think about Instagram and how that appears to our followers every single day. So
Yeah.
I don't blame anyone for not understanding, but that's what we're here for, is to keep everybody updated and stay updated ourselves. So, um, is there anything else that we hadn't hit on?
I don't think so. So, Luke, thanks a ton for all of this. I think this is really helpful information. And if anybody is feeling lost in the world of algorithms or confused about where to go from here or not knowing if you need an audit or whatever it is, feel free to reach out to us. You can reach out to us on lotusflowermedia.com and fill out our contact form, or you can reach out to either Luke or me at our emails. My email is Elizabeth at lotusflowermedia.com. And Luke, yours is?
My email is lukeriosti at Lotus Flower Media, and whatever you need to figure out, we can figure it out together.
We are here to help make your content bloom.